Welcome to Indiana Sports Beat Radio, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington and Southern Stone Restaurant.
Looks over the middle, second guesses, fires, throws. Does he make the catch in the end zone? Yes! Touchdown! Oladipo to win it.
Another one! Another one! Another one! Huge hole! He's at the 30. He's going to go! 10, 5, touchdown! Jonathan Taylor!
Galloway finds Rob Finnessy, who fires the three, and
He hit it!
Now, from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, here's your host, Jim Coyle.
Hey, welcome to Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Jim Coyle will be with us shortly. Actually, looks like he's checking in right now. So let's go ahead and bring in your host, Jim Coyle, here with Kevin Brockway, as always on Tuesdays. Jim, you there with us? Looks like he's having some mic issues at first, so we'll go ahead and get started with Kevin. Kevin, obviously, Indiana with a must-win game tonight against Wisconsin. A lot of thoughts the past couple of days about what went down in East Lansing against Michigan State, but a lot of people have been trying to avoid saying this because it's a cliche, but tonight really feels like a must-win game for the Hoosiers.
Well, this is a program that had a 6-game losing streak last year, and when you heard Mike Woodson's radio show last night with Don Fisher, he talked a lot about this team learning how to win, which has been kind of a theme throughout the whole season. Teaching them how to get over the hump, and that he has to be the guy that gets them over the hump. In terms of when he was asked specifically a question about leadership, so I think this is an important stretch coming up, and obviously you knew this was going to be a difficult stretch going into it. You didn't know that 5 players were going to be suspended for the Northwestern game, which pretty much made that game tremendously difficult to win. So I think you're in a situation now where you're back at home. You've played well at home for most of the season. You did have a little slip up against Illinois, but this one is really important to kind of get back on track and turn, make close out this month strong so that you have a chance to make the NCAA tournament.
Jim, you back with us?
Yeah, just bouncing around a little bit.
Well, welcome back into your own show, Jim.
Well, I can't see the comments, so I'm just trying to bounce out of that. But, yep, I agree. This is a team that actually has been rudderless for 3 seasons, so this is nothing new. They've not had a leader before, and you got to give Mike Woodson a little leeway. I'm talking about the fans. He comes into this. He inherited this. He inherited a team that did not have a leader. He inherited a team that does not know how to win. He inherited a team that had some dysfunction. So I'm not going to load it up on him. But yeah, this team had issues.
I will say this: we can talk about all the intangibles we want that are unmeasurable, and that we don't all have privy to in terms of like what goes on in the locker room. And I know a lot of sports writers like to do that and cover it. The bottom line is, they brought in 2 guys who they thought were going to be the shooters that haven't shot. Miller Kopp and Parker Stewart. And that's a misvaluation. That's a little bit on maybe Kenny Hunter and the coaching staff. That's not necessarily learning how to win or leading. That's a misevaluation. I'm big into evaluations. I'm big into find players that can fit, or you find players that are going to perform. And, again, when you go into the transfer market, sometimes it's a 50-50 thing. And Parker Stewart was the previous regime. Miller Kopp was this regime. But there have been some, serious misevaluations along the way in terms of recruiting and talent.
Absolutely. And I'm not giving a complete pass. The one thing that I will say has been this, the starting lineup, the rotations, there hasn't seemed to be a great willingness to experiment when it's obvious that something's not working. I mean, we were pretty deep into the season when we're like, they're not getting a lot of production out of Miller Kopp and Parker Stewart. So that's been going on for a while. And I'll be honest with you, I'd rather see Tamar Bates in there right now. He's a future player. I'd rather see Trey Galloway in there like we just did. He's a future player. Look at the future, not giving up on today, but I think you can build the future while still building today with those players. And you're not getting anything. You're not getting what you need from Miller Kopp and Parker Stewart. You're not getting what you need to succeed anyway. Why? Why continue beating on that dead horse?
Yeah, and if Leal had an opportunity, I thought in the Northwestern game, he didn't take advantage of it. Unfortunately, he's a guy that you could put in there, but he didn't really show me much in that game. So I don't know, and listen, Trey Galloway took a pretty big step back in that Michigan State game. He was not good at all. He had 1 point. I mean, he had a few assists, but Mike wasn't happy. Mike tried him at the backup point guard spot, wasn't necessarily happy with how he was running the offense.
Well, and we got to. He's
Christian
not
Lander.
You have to understand that.
What Christian Lander, is another guy though, but he doesn't trust Christian Lander obviously because he has Galloway backing up a point guard now, and Christian really hasn't shown much in 2 seasons in terms of development for Mike to give him that kind of rope. So I think you kind of are where you are with this team, with this group, and you gotta work through it. But I do think Galloway and Mar Bates certainly had an encouraging game against Michigan State. Can he sustain that? He's a guy that needs more minutes, whether as a starter or maybe he takes that mantle as the productive 6th man again to help the second unit. They do, you're starting to see they do miss Rob Finney a lot. He's been out for 4 games. They miss his perimeter defense. They miss his occasional scoring. They just miss his steadiness and calmness and as the backup point for Xavier when Xavier gets in foul trouble.
No question. And that is, there's not when, but yeah, when he does, because that's going to be a constant, something he hasn't been able to do. And I'll be honest with you, I haven't seen him, and I don't want to lay it on a guy who just came in to be the leader, but he's a point guard and he's he's an upperclassman. He hasn't really seemed to relish or grab onto the mantle of leader for that team, floor leader, at all either. It's been kind of haphazard.
Well, he was one of the 5 guys that was suspended too. So
my point.
In terms of that leadership, it's kind of like how can you, and what did he do to really respond? I thought he played with really good energy early in that game against Michigan State, but then the foul trouble kind of got him out of it a little bit. That was a weird game in East Lansing in terms of there was a lot of physicality in that game and there were a lot of fouls called and it just broke up the rhythm. But guys continue to play physical. I mean, Race Thompson, wrestling to the ground for a rebound. He's still playing his butt off. It was a strange game in that regard. And then Indiana made a nice run in the second half. They take a 1-point lead, and then it really pretty much went all downhill from there.
Notice that Baylor loses one of their players for the year. Man, that's a tough blow to a knee injury. The bubble watch continues. How close to the bubble is Indiana right now?
I mean, I think they're there. I think what kind of hurt them, what's hurting them a little bit too, is because you take a look at other teams in the league, is that Rutgers is starting to play a lot better. They went into Wisconsin and they beat Wisconsin. So
they did something that Indiana has not been able to do since 1990s.
So does Rutgers take that bubble spot? And I think I think that could be a huge game on March 2nd, that Indiana-Rutgers game. That could be like the bubble game, and you have it here. But I think those 2 teams, that's going to be really big, especially if Indiana gets back into this thing. They beat Wisconsin. They beat, say if they, get back on track a little bit and beat Minnesota and Maryland next week. I think that becomes almost like a play-in game for the NCAA tournament, those 2 teams, because you're talking about 2 teams that are kind of right there battling for that 6th or 7th Big Ten bid in the league. And then you've got Iowa and Michigan kind of hanging around also.
As you say,
you really got 9
Michigan. Iowa's a team that we expected to, but Michigan they're trying to surge. And if you get another Big Ten team, people are going to look for a team to kick out. And Indiana has given too many people a lot of reasons to be that team right now. Yeah.
I mean, if you take a look at it, Indiana has the 2 quad wins. They have the Purdue win and they have the Ohio State win. But Michigan State also beat Purdue at home, and Michigan also beat Purdue at home, and Michigan beat, Rutgers beat Purdue at home. and Michigan beat Indiana head-to-head. So those are little things. Iowa beat Indiana head-to-head. Now, those are little things that the committee is going to look at. I think like you've got probably 9 teams battling for 7 spots. So it's going to be interesting down the stretch to see how that all plays out.
Absolutely. Well, of course, we'll get to talk to Mike DeCourcy about that. He's becoming Mr. Bracketology. He is Fox and the BTN's bracketologist. I'm trying to get his pulled up. So we'll see what he has to say about where Indiana is and where they're going and what they have to do to maintain their spot. And you would really hate to see this team not make the tournament because it's something the program desperately needs, but they were right there and they had it in their hands and they control their own destiny. But their destiny has certainly changed here of late. How much do you think the suspensions or what actually led up to the suspensions, the fact that they thought it was okay to do what they did, all 5 of them, is the beginning of a potential year-end problem for this team?
Yeah, I think it didn't help because if you would have had those, I think if you would have had those 5 guys at the Northwestern game with the way that Northwestern shot the ball in that game too, it was really ripe for a game to win on the road. So that really hurts. I mean, you take a look at the 2 games that they've lost in Big Ten play that you say they really, you wish you could get back. I would say Penn State on the road, and I would say this game on the road, and maybe Michigan at home too. That's another game that, you're coming off the big win at Purdue. You came out flat. That's another one that hurt. But hey, listen, there's a lot of time. You've got 6 games left. There's an opportunity in front of you. Tonight's an opportunity to get a quad 1 win, which would help the resume. So you got to go out and you got to take advantage of it. 9:00 tip. It should be a pretty good crowd tonight at Assembly Hall. The weather's warming up, so hopefully people can get down from Indianapolis. Not have to worry about the snow and the ice and everything like that. That'll be all melted by now. So this will be a big chance tonight for Indiana to kind of right the ship a little bit.
Yeah, Joe Hillman on the post-game show the other night talked about how important it was for the fans to come out to this game. And I don't recall him. He's on with us a lot. Don't recall him being that emphatic before, but he was really talked about how important it was for the fans to show up for this game. And he knows it's a late game, but yeah, you've got whoever you are in the Big Ten, you've got to have your fans behind you because Indiana has an advantage in that regard a lot of times. But if they're not there to participate, that advantage disappears, and they're going to need every bit of help that they can get for certain.
Yeah. I don't know. It's so funny when you think about momentum in teams. It's like that Wisconsin game. I mean, had Wisconsin beaten Rutgers, obviously that would have helped Indiana in the Big Ten standings. And also, you wonder if a team coming off a loss is a little hungrier compared to a team coming off a win and is feeling good about themselves. But then sometimes you wonder about, the other way. Could it spiral? Could this be the beginning of a Wisconsin spiral? I always find that kind of fascinating when you look at the other side of it. I know Brad Davison has been really struggling of late for Wisconsin, and I think they were 4-21 from 3. But Indiana has to knock down shots too. I mean, that's been another huge issue. It's just
it's been one of the huge issues.
Yeah, but you kind of thought in December. Remember, once upon a time, Parker Stewart was leading the Big Ten in 3-point shooting percentage. You look back at that Notre Dame game, the Crossroads Classic, and you said to yourself, this team might be able to shoot a little bit. And they were at 37%, I think, going into January from 3-point range. But if you probably looked at their percentage in conference only, it's got to be in the low 30s or 20s because their overall percentage is down to about 34%.
Yeah, pretty bad. Hey, we got to take a quick break. Mike DeCourcy will be with us when we come back from Fox BTN and the Sporting News. Brought to you by Southern Stone Restaurant, where you can always catch Inside Indiana Basketball Monday night at 7:05 with Don Fisher and Mike Whitson, or a great meal. Hey, we're back with more from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington and Southern Stone Restaurant.
Whether it's a celebration.
I guess Jim's still having issues with something. Oh, he said he couldn't see the comments. Isn't that what he said earlier?
I don't know why. It's telling me I have to freaking log in.
Oh, I've had that issue before. Well, there he goes. Let's see.
No.
Better?
Yeah, everything I needed.
Perfect.
It was treating me like an outsider.
I've had that happen before.
I've had it happen just a couple
That's
times.
the days where
like,
it usually screws up all my audio connections and I have to go over and mess with everything.
When's Mike on this segment or the next?
Yeah, he should be. He's usually coming on this
Okay.
segment.
Trying to find his bracketology.
Bracketology.
Yeah. I don't want Joe Lenardi.
I think he had him as a 10 seed, but that was before the Michigan State loss.
Damn it. How do you pull his up direct?
Down to 25 seconds. He'll probably end up joining mid-segment. I'm going to go ahead and bring us back in.
TheHoosier.com and sign up. It's free. You can also find full episodes of Indiana Sports Beat Radio on the homepage or on the station every week, Monday through Friday. If we're not on a station where you live, we should be. Ask for Indiana Sports Beat Radio.
Today's guest is brought to you by Reynolds Family Dentistry of Sellersburg. You need $1 million smile for those championship photos, and that's exactly what you'll get with Reynolds Family Dentistry.
Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington and Southern Stone Restaurant.
Welcome back on this Tuesday. It is a beautiful blue sky day. It looks so nice through the window, but it's lying to you. It's cold out there. Mike DeCourcy joins us. Mike, how are you, brother?
I am well, Jim. How are you? Good morning, Kevin.
I'm warm. I'm warm because I did not fall for the lies of the blue skies. It's cold outside.
Well, I went out just to my garage, and ours is insulated, and it was still cold. So that tells you something.
It does, man. We were just talking about bracketology and Mike DeCourcy's bracketology, and it's ebbs and flows. Of course, the Big Ten, the bottom of the Big Ten, Indiana is in that segment. You've got a Michigan team that is trying to crawl up there, and I think that's a dangerous situation for an Indiana team. Because I don't know that I think there's a certain number that sometimes people get in their head that a conference like, oh, well, they don't deserve that many or this, that. And I think Indiana they don't want to be in that situation where they're being compared to someone else in the bottom of the Big Ten unless they do some things that they have not accomplished yet. But because they're kind of trending downward and where the other teams are all trending up, whether it's Rutgers, Michigan, even though it lost here, but they're playing better. It's the eye test. I think the eye test a lot. Of course, you're one of the nation's foremost bracketologists, and that's first of all, golly, that is so much information and where Joe Lenardi, that's all he does.
No, it's not. Well, as far as I know, he also has a VP level position at St. Joseph's University. I don't think he's retired from that job yet, so it's not all he does.
Well, he probably has. That sounds like it's a pretty cushy job.
Next time I see Joe, I'll tell him that we've all caught on to the fact that his St. Joe's gig is.
I don't know him. He seems like a great guy.
No, he's a great guy. I will tell you this. That he is so busy on that job, or at least he was 15 years ago or so. When I took my nephew, I guess it was the spring, it's February of 2008. It's February of 2008. I took him to Philly on a college trip. I took my one nephew to North Carolina, visited Duke, Carolina, and Wake during basketball season, and then I took him to Philly. So we visited Villanova and St. Joe's. And so when we went to St. Joe's, Phil Martelli had time for me and Joe didn't. So that tells you a little bit about how busy he is.
And the funny thing is, when I think of bracketology, I think of him, I think of you. But both guys are very nice and down to earth. And he seems that with all the and because he didn't come from sports media, when that's thrust upon a lot of people, sometimes it changes. He's just the same old, seems like the same old down to earth guy that you like to sit down and talk to.
Oh yeah,
just like yourself. And it's great. It's like, man, you like to sit down and talk with those guys about whatever for a while. But
he's a great guy. Yeah, I was sort of there at the start of all of this, and I'll tell you how it all came about. The Blue Ribbon College Basketball Yearbook, which was started by Chris Wallace, who now works in the NBA as an executive. He was a basketball junkie from West Virginia who decided to start putting out his own publication about college basketball. It was an encyclopedic publication about each team that was relevant, and then eventually he when he got the Boston Celtics GM job. It may not have gone directly to GM, but I think he did. He went straight. He went really quickly to the top of the NBA. And when he got the job in the NBA, he sold Blue Ribbon to Joe and Chris Dortch, a sports writer from Chattanooga. I think there was one other partner at the time. I don't remember. But so they decided to do this NCAA tournament guide. This is pre-internet, remember. So they would finish the publication like wee hours of Sunday morning after Selection Sunday and have it in your hands by like Wednesday or something through FedEx or whatever. They had to get it all printed and published. So in order to get this, to get the right 68 teams, Joe sort of came up with the science of bracketology so that they didn't have to have articles ready for 100 teams. They'd had, okay, we know who's going to be in this. And that's how it all got started. Was trying to get that be as efficient as possible for that publication. And Joe did that, which was really smart to come up with that, because then ESPN latched on to him as their bracket person. But what he did that wasn't smart was he invented the word bracketology and didn't trademark it. I don't know how much money that cost him, but I'm sure ESPN sort of made up for it in the time he's been working for them. But I gotta figure he left a few bucks on the table by not trademarking that. Who has that trademark? Nobody, as far as I know. It was too late for him to do it once it was being used. Yeah, I think so. We do not use that phrase on Fox because it's so closely aligned with him. So I since he's the original, I don't consider myself a bracketologist. I consider myself a bracket analyst, is what I call it. And Fox calls our publication or whatever presentation bracket forecast. So that's what they call it on Fox when they reveal my weekly brackets. John, make a note, please. I am making a note as that as well. So put that in the vernacular. Our bracket, we have our great bracket analyst. But plus,
And speaking of enough jobs, BTN, Fox, Sporting News, I know you're doing the same thing. I mean, similar things within. It's not like you're going to be a hospital administrator, but I meant something different out of.
No, I know that's great. I like that.
But then it's the flights and being at this studio and all of that. It's the travel, and I know it's trying to do the studying during the travel. It's the research. I don't think people understand the enormity of the research, because if you take your favorite team and your favorite conference, now multiply that by 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That's a lot of information.
Yeah, I got really raked over the coals on Friday by Kentucky fans because I had
Shocker.
Kansas. I'm sorry?
Shocker.
Yeah. I had I had Kansas as my 4th number 1 seed, and I had them paired in the same region with Kentucky. And I just got blasted for that. And because they kept pointing to the tremendous Kentucky win at Kansas earlier this month. And it was a great win, and they were phenomenal that day. And it's a huge element of their resume to this point. But their resume is not a 1-seed resume. And honestly, if you put them on the one line at 8, 9 a.m. on Tuesday, the 15th of February, you're putting them on the one line on one simple basis. I think they're great. And that's not how it works. And it's not how it should work, because I think is nonsense. It has nothing to do with anything. I think they're great. If it worked, we'd all be loaded. We'd all, like, the sports books would all be broke. If I think meant anything, there would, all those sports books that are advertising on TV during the Super Bowl, they would be broke. We'd all clean them out, because we don't know. That's the reality. All you can do is look at a team and the list of opponents they've beaten or lost to, and say, let that tell you the story. Not, well, Kentucky's great, but they just happen to lose basically half of their most difficult games. That doesn't count for anything. They're 5-4 against quad 1. That's for a 1 seed. That would be an abysmal record. For a 2 seed, it's not impressive, but they have an impressive team. And by the end of the next 2 weeks, they'll either have said, absolutely, we're a number 1 seed, and why would you ever doubt us? Or they'll have said, yeah, we really couldn't put it together when we had to, because they've got, in their next 2 weeks, they have a Tennessee game tonight, huge game on the road. There's some really good games in college hoops tonight. They have that. They also, and these may not be in order, but they also have Alabama at home, LSU at home, and at Arkansas. Those are their next 4 games. End of those 4 games, you're going to know whether they belong in the 1-seed conversation or not. And if they only go 2-2, then the answer is maybe not, unless somebody else does worse. But to achieve their way onto the 1 line, they got to win at least 3 of those games.
Plus, Kevin, you cover the SEC a while. They've got a team in there named Auburn that could be a roadblock to them being a number 1, because Auburn is probably going to be a number 1 seed unless someone does something to them.
Yeah, Auburn, I'm looking at their quad 1 right now, 7-2, and 6-0 be quad 2. So it's 13-2, quad 1 and quad 2. Kentucky 9-4. So, and I don't know if they have another head-to-head meeting. I do know that they're going to
be tournament. They'll play the tournament, SEC tournament.
Yes. But, they could see each other in the SEC tournament, which would be another rematch. I do think that, and I'm looking at Kansas 8-3, quad 1 versus Kentucky 5-4. So that proves to Mike's point, and that.
The Big 12 is a much more difficult conference than. Well, I think it's a better conference.
I wouldn't say necessarily. I mean, if you looked at the challenge, the SEC went 6-4. They did pretty well. So I wouldn't say it's a much more difficult, but it's probably a little bit of a deeper conference, top to bottom, in terms of quality. but Kentucky, Auburn, Tennessee, they've got some heavyweights in that league this year in the SEC that they're definitely stronger than they've been in previous years.
What the Big 12 doesn't have in their conference is Georgia, Vandy, Ole Miss. Their worst team is Oak State, which has been beating Quad 1 opponents on occasion. Their next worst team is K-State, which actually has a shot at getting to the field. Oak State's does not have a chance because they are principally because they're ineligible, but also that overall they're 12-12, 2-9 against Quad 1. But like I said, they have 2 wins against Quad 1 opponents. They have 4 against Quad 2. That may be the grand total of the bottom of the SEC. So that's the difference. And of course, you have 10 teams in the Big 12 versus 14 in the SEC. So there's more room for poor teams to gather at the bottom.
Yep.
And talking about tonight's games, what games are coming up that you're looking at that are really going to starting to impact this end of the season?
Well, it starts with what I mentioned before, Kentucky at Tennessee, which is huge for both teams, really, because Tennessee could use that. Tennessee's been hanging around the top 5, top 6 seeds. They could use that to maybe climb up to the 3 line if they won that. They've been playing very well lately. Their offense has been clicking more than it once did.
Which could give the SEC 3 teams in the top 3, minimum top 3 lines.
Yeah, I think they could. Now they have to do some things, and tonight would be an example. And then the other one, a huge game in the Big East race is Providence against Villanova at Providence. This is probably the biggest game that's been played at Providence at the Dunkin' Donuts Center, the Dunk as they like to call it. Probably the biggest game that they've had in the last 30 years at home. And if Providence wins it, they don't mathematically clinch the Big East championship, but it would be sort of a de facto clinching. I mean, they would be at that point 12-1, and Villanova would be 12-4. So it would be really hard for Providence not to win the league if they're able to prevail at home tonight. Providence is one of those teams that's like Wisconsin in the Big Ten that is absolutely completely divided by the metrics. The performance metrics hate them. The achievement metrics love them because they've achieved. They've only lost 2 games all year. They have some really high quality wins like Wisconsin, like a bunch of their Big East wins, but they win a lot of close games. They just beat DePaul in overtime on Saturday. That's kind of what Providence does. I think Ed Cooley right now is a leading candidate for National Coach of the Year. What they've been able to do there with a relatively unimpressive roster, at least in terms of the recruiting rankings that they came in with, what they've been able to do has been amazing.
He's one of the more underrated coaches in college basketball, like Cooley. I really like what he does. And didn't they lost some of their best players from last? Because I remember they played Indiana last year. They had David Duke on that team, right? And he's gone. And I think what they've done is pretty remarkable as well.
I mentioned this yesterday, Mike, that you talk about that Providence team. They're led by Indiana transfer Al Durham, who just hit 12 of 12 at the free throw line in an overtime win for them over DePaul, which propelled them into yesterday's top 10 for the first time. This is from JB3, sent me all this. Since Ray Tolbert was at IU, or only the 4th time since Ray Tolbert was a freshman, I believe, and the first time since Mike Woodson was a freshman, I believe, or something like that. But the sheer fact that he was the last IU player 4-year to not crack the top 10, he did it at Providence, but he second year in a row that an IU transfer left to become more successful in a program. Justin Smith the year before at Arkansas. But congratulations to Al Durham. He's having a whale of a year, and I hope it continues for him. But it's certainly they have had no problems integrating things there.
Yeah, he's done great work there, and I've been very impressed with the way Al has played for the Friars. Plays very much within himself. I think that's the nature of what they do, is they don't ask you to do things you can't do. They're really good for not having a superstar point guard. They're really good late clock because they have such a calm about them. And I think that comes from Ed. Ed's one of those guys that keeps his cool. He can be passionate and all of that, but he keeps his guys' heads in the moment. I really like the way he handles his teams. They have not had a ton of success in the NCAA tournament, which is why I think that he sometimes gets overlooked as one of the really good coaches in college basketball. But it's really nice to see him having the year he's having here.
Let's see, we got plenty more to talk about. A favorite little we'll talk about this when we come back, but a nice little bit of information that Rick Bozich sent out yesterday, that a nice $10,000 package delivery to who was it, Kevin? The Kentucky player, daggone it, the unibrow.
Anthony Davis. Yeah, we're taking one of the people that's going to jail over the 27. Yeah, has written a book. So you can take that for what it's worth is what I would say. But
the ironic thing, it was supposedly delivered the day of the watch shot in Bloomington.
Yes.
So that didn't work out too well, but we got more coming up here on Indiana Sports Beat. Mike DeCourcy from the Sporting News, Fox and BTN is with us, as is Kevin Brockway from CNHI Papers. Back with more, brought to you by our friends at Reynolds Family Dentistry. Go see our good friend at Dr. J. Back with more right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington and Southern Stone Restaurants.
Sports on television.
Yeah, I'm reading that.
I saw that yesterday and I just laughed. Yeah, Pat came from Pat 40 though. That's right.
Yeah, I'm reading it right now. Yeah, I've been reading it this morning. Yeah,
that was hilarious. And just like it's just a coincidence that both Duke and Kentucky just went into the dump when all of that Adidas stuff went down. Just coincidence. Where do you have to travel this week, Mike?
Just up to Chicago.
Is that for your normal Sunday afternoon?
Yeah, exactly.
10 Network.
Yes.
What do we have? 3 more weeks of the regular season? Or 2?
Gosh, it's going fast, man.
Unbelievable.
It's weird. College basketball really doesn't get much time to itself anymore because that extra week in the NFL, and now that's over, and now you've only got the rest of February, March, and then the first weekend in April. And then in between all that, don't you have the MLB starting up? I can't think of when that starts, spring training and all that stuff, but all right, I'm going to bring us back in.
Down and 1.9% financing over 60 months. Need more room? New 2022 Honda HRVs and Honda Pilots are eligible for $0 down and 0.9% financing over 48 months. And you can always get more to your door with AndyMooreHonda.com. Andy Moore Honda Bloomington, Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer.
Come see us at the all-new Andy Moore Honda, now in Bloomington.
This segment is brought to you by Remax Advanced Realty, Indy Home Pros team by Cheryl Sizemore. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington and Southern Stone Restaurant.
Welcome back. It is Tuesday here at the Indiana Sports Beat Radio. And, of course, Kevin Brockway from CNHI Papers with me, as is the great Mike DeCourcy from the Sporting News, BTN, and Fox. Mike will be traveling up to the studios on Sunday for his regular spot, kind of in the cockpit, the headquarters of college basketball for most of us. That's got to be, I don't know how much fun it is, but just to be up in there to the broadcast center, dealing with all that at once, that's to be kind of enjoyable being in the center of that.
It is. You know, one of the things that's puzzling to me about the way college basketball functions in this window is I don't understand why Sunday isn't a more important day to them. Once football clears out, I'm talking about once, like, why aren't there more? Why don't they fill that vacuum? I don't quite understand that. We have we have a lot of games on BTN on Sundays. It's not us, so to speak. I don't understand why we put 120 games on Saturday and then like 30 on Sunday or something like that. I mean, it really is that there is that level of disparity, and I'm not sure why that is. It's still cool to be able to, watch. We had 3 games on Super Bowl Sunday in the conference, including one on BTN, one on I believe it was one on FS1 and one on CBS that were being aired on Sunday, and excuse me, including Illinois and Northwestern on BTN, and then we aired Big Ten basketball and beyond. But I do think that I think college basketball misses an opportunity there to fill that void. What are you going to watch on Sunday?
I was going to say they could own it.
Football. What are you going to watch? You're going to tune in and watch what? Curling? I don't know. I'm not a big curling guy. So
I have heard this from an attendance standpoint. I have heard this in the SEC, and maybe this will be true in the Big 12 too, but I heard this in the SEC where they talked about Sunday being a church day and attendance, that it's hard to get people to come out in some of these Bible Belt towns on a Sunday, and that's why Saturday is kind of the bigger day in terms of scheduling games in that conference. I don't know if that's true for every conference, but I think that's something that, I had heard in SEC circles when I was covering the league at the time.
Man,
right.
you put the games out there, they're coming. I don't care what day it is anymore. Maybe it does. There's some slight effect in the Bible Belt. I won't deny that, but there are plenty of games. The ACC, the Big 10, the Big 12. Trust me, you put a great game on, I'm going to watch it, especially if it's 12 degrees outside. Where else? There's nothing. There's no place to go. You've got that whole day that people are actually tuned to watching. The sports bars would love it, and so I agree with Mike. I mean, it is a void that is. They're not taking advantage of it because it's now just sitting there empty. They're waiting for NASCAR to come along to take that up, I guess. But yeah, great opportunity missed. I agree.
Yeah, we do get around to pumping that up once we get to the conference tournaments and Selection Sunday and the NCAA tournament. But I do think that there's this window when there's not a lot of football that we could the college basketball could use to better advantage, no question.
Indiana, of course, their season. I don't know what the real expectations were. I know what the fans' expectations were, but we've seen them come from where they started, having some rough trips at Syracuse, at Wisconsin, but we've saw success with Ohio State, with Purdue, then stepping back with Michigan, Northwestern. I'm not sure. And right now, I don't know where this team is. If there is some fracture in that from the suspensions, the the changing in the lineups. I don't know where this team is. I don't know. Can they recapture their, I hate to use the word magic, but whatever it is that they had going, can they recapture that and going forward? Because they've got a game tonight against Wisconsin that is virtually a must-win game. I guess you don't have to call it a must-win game, but it's up there close.
It is, I that's why I felt the Northwestern game, because they had coming after Northwestern, which I knew would be challenging, even absent the circumstance that was created. They had after Northwestern, they had at Michigan State, then Wisconsin at home, then at at Ohio State. So you had 3 consecutive games against teams at the very top of the league, which is to say they can't win some or all of them, but they needed to get that Northwestern game so that they could then go forward into that really difficult stretch with some confidence, some momentum, and instead they wind up with this horrible circumstance where they basically have half a team, and that was really costly, and it may end up being as one looks at it now, it looks like the episode that was the tipping point for this team to go the wrong direction. That's not to say that that's correct, but they've now lost 2 in a row, and they face that Wisconsin game. And I as I mentioned Kentucky and I mentioned Villanova, this is another game that's just enormous in the college basketball season. Wisconsin needs it as well because they lost to Rutgers at home, and Wisconsin is on the verge of basically starting to play to their talent level. Wisconsin has played above their station for the entire season. They have been terrific and winning close games and relying on Johnny Davis to do great things and relying on Tyler Wall to be always in the right place, making the right decision. Well, against Rutgers, Johnny Davis was pretty muted. They did a great defensive job on him. And then Tyler Wall had a couple of opportunities to make the kinds of plays that he makes 100% of the time. Didn't happen. He was on the weak side of an offensive rebound, and it was like the ball was there. It was like, and all of a sudden, a Rutgers guy came in and took it right out of his hands. Essentially, that maybe has happened one other time in his entire career. This is what he does. He always makes the right play. That was huge. And then they ran an offensive set that got him a perfect pass to get him completely alone underneath the basket. If he goes up quickly, he scores. He hesitates because he's worried about getting his shot blocked. And again, that's part of what Rutgers does to you, right? So he hesitates, and then the shot's gone, and then he goes up, and he gets it deflected, or he doesn't complete it because he's now challenged. So that those things are starting to happen in Wisconsin, and IU can make those things happen tonight if they play at their highest level, if they play their best basketball. But that's why it's such an important game for both of them. IU is falling toward the bubble and on the descent to falling all the way out. This is the kind of game that could stabilize their season. Wisconsin has been as high as a 1 on my bracket. It was a 2 last week. They'll be down another notch this week, and they're starting to fall toward 5-6 range. That's the trend. They're not anywhere near it yet, but that's the trend, and that's what they're trying to fight against. And again, they win tonight and get a good quality road win tonight, and that sort of stabilizes them. So that's why it's such a tremendously important game for both sides.
And also, Kevin, they want to stay in the Big Ten title hunt, which I guess maybe something they care about too. I mean, their game out there. I was looking at Indiana 2-5 v Quad 1, Wisconsin 7-4 Quad 1. They have done a pretty remarkable job to this point. Like you said, Mike, again, given their talent level, I know Brad Davison has been struggling a little bit lately as well, and that's impacted them. And I guess if you're an Indiana fan, you're probably hoping that slump continues today. Yeah,
excuse me. I think that's what Indiana has to do. They have to. I think the first responsibility is to make sure that Johnny Davis can't hurt you. If you're playing against Wisconsin, you're trying to limit his ability. So you're either trying to make it difficult for him to catch the ball, or when he gets the ball, that he ends up, if he scores 20, it's on 19 shots, something inefficient. because that helps your team. If he's missing 15 shots in a game, that's 15 potential defensive rebounds for you. So that helps you. That helps you as a team. And so that different teams have defended him differently. But the idea for all of them has been to try to make him ineffective. And if you can make him ineffective, then it really puts a lot of pressure on the other guys. And as you mentioned, Davison in particular has not made shots. He had a lot of open shots in that Rutgers game, and none of them dropped. Chucky Hepburn had an open 3 late, didn't drop. And I mentioned the wall plays that didn't happen for him. All that contributed to them being unable to close the gap on Rutgers down the stretch on Saturday afternoon.
Indiana playing Wisconsin tonight in a late game. Never fun, but it's a lot more fun when you're at home than it is when you're on the road. I can promise you that. I wonder how Indiana's done in late games overall this year. I have to go back and look at that. I know they didn't do well at Northwestern, but Wisconsin, they need this game too for the reasons Mike just mentioned. They're trending the wrong way, and they have been if nothing else, they have been as consistent as any team in the league this year. But Indiana has got to find a way to do what they did the first time against them, but for 40 minutes this time, not just for 20 minutes.
Yes.
Trace Jackson-Davis, they've got to get him involved. They've got to get the guards involved. They've got to find a way, because recently a change in lineup, adding Trey Galloway to that, but he was playing point guard at Northwestern, and I'm not sure he knows where he fits in this offense yet. Moved to a different position again. I'd like to see Tamar Bates on the floor, to be honest with you, more. I wouldn't mind seeing him start, just because I think that you're going forward with him anyway. He's part of the future. You're not getting anything from the wings as it is. You're getting virtually zero production. So why not? I don't see a loss there if you play that.
One of the things that Bates gives you that they don't have in their regular starting lineup is he gives you the multiple threat. He can attack the lane. He has the ability to get the ball to the lane. And he's obviously a very capable shooter as well. What you have in Parker Stewart and Miller Kopp are 2 shooters, and that's it. That's what they do. That's the limit. I would imagine that the reason you're not seeing Bates is that Mike is starting his thought process on defense, and that's where it begins. And having veteran players out there who understand college concepts, who've been through it, who are less likely to make a mistake. I think that sometimes you get caught up in that, and I think that's Kevin. You could correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems to me that that's where it begins for Mike on the construction of his lineup and rotation. It begins at the defensive end.
No question, no, and he set that as the identity, and he said from the beginning of the year that this is going to be a team where the defense is ahead of the offense, and that's been the case. And they've been at their best when they've shut teams down. I mean, you take a look at that. They went from Penn State and Maryland, where you hold 2 opponents under 60, and to a point where even when you were shorthanded, you held Northwestern under 60. But Michigan State, that was a game that got away from them. It got up to about 76. Illinois got in the 70s as well. So against those 2 high-level teams, the defense couldn't really corral them and keep them under that mark, where they need to be. But obviously the offense, now you've got 3, if not for a 3-point play by Jordan Geronimo at the end of the game, you would have been talking about 3 straight games for Indiana under 60 points. So it's kind of that balance, right? You need that production too. You need the offense also. And even Mike Woodson even talked about that on his radio show last night, that it can't all be on the defense, and you're going to need some production. So I don't know what you do. Do you shift the lineup, or do you ride with what you have and hope that a guy like Parker Stewart or Miller Kopp breaks out all of a sudden? That's kind of where you are right now. They're in a tough spot because of the fact that they have some one-dimensional players in that regard.
Yeah, you're kind of entirely dependent on the point guard, and obviously with Rob Hurt, you're basically entirely dependent on Xavier Johnson to generate your anything that's not a catch and shoot three, and that's a lot to put on him.
I think Trace Jackson Davis, too, his production has severely been curtailed the last 3 games. I think he's shooting somewhere in the 30% range, which makes sense. I mean, teams are probably going to focus on him a little bit because he's been the featured player. But Indiana has got to find a way of picking that up. Race Thompson has been the most consistent player all year. It doesn't matter what goes on. It seems like he can pull a double-double out almost every game, but Trace Jackson's got to step up. He's limited with his offensive abilities, so he's just going to have to step up and play. I don't know if it's play harder or what it is, but the production has not been there from him of late. So when you're having issues from shooting and your big guy, that's not a good recipe.
Yeah, definitely not. And I think part of the problem, one of Trace's problems that is he plays in a conference that's loaded with big guys, loaded with centers.
Good big guys.
Yeah, I mean, how many leagues have a Kofi Coburn, let alone a Kofi Coburn and a Hunter Dickinson, and Wisconsin has 2 7-footers. The list goes on. It's really difficult to deal with all of that. Rutgers has a 6'10" guy who blocks shots. There aren't very many easy interior defenses for a 6'9" post player to attack. And so that's problematic. If he were in a different league, like if he were in the SEC, yeah, he'd have to go against the Walker Kessler and Oscar Shibwe, but not every other team in the SEC has guys like that. So he would have an easier time most nights than he does in the Big Ten, regardless of the level of ability of the team in general, but just that concentration of terrific big guys that exists in the Big Ten makes it harder for him. And the fact that his game still hasn't expanded makes him easier to defend. He's a great low post scorer. I mean, legitimately great low post scorer for college. But even at that, he's based primarily on his quickness and his touch. It's not, he's not able. A lot of the really good low post scorers in college basketball over the last 20 years or so are based on their ability to use their lower body bulk against you. There's a kid at Louisiana Tech right now, Kenneth Lofton Jr., who was able to deal with Zach Edey at the U19 World Championships because of he's a really big guy. And so he's only about 6'6", but he's got all that physical power. And he's able to use that. Trace doesn't have that. He doesn't have that wide body thing. So it's all quick move and unbelievable finishing ability. And if the opposing big guy is reasonably quick, as say Kofi is, and 4 inches taller as Kofi is, some of what Trace does isn't able to be as effective.
I always thought that with him too, there's an energy element to him too. And don't forget, he's a decent leaper. And I always thought that he is at his best when he is rebounding the basketball, offensive rebounds, defensive rebounds, putbacks. And I have not seen that from him as much as I did earlier in the season. I think that's an area too, where, if you pick up the energy level and you can battle on the boards a little bit, you can get some cheap points that way.
Let me ask you this though: how much of that is based on the fact that you're playing 2 shooting wings, and neither of them gets the ball to the lane, and so offensive rebounds are a lot of times not as available. When the ball's coming off on a 3, it's harder for a big guy to get those. Whereas if a ball's coming off a layup or a short jumper, a really good big guy is able to offensive rebound something like that.
I think so too. I think that's a fair point. But I do think Xavier drives it a little. I think that there are some other opportunities out there, and there's some opportunities in terms of even sometimes when Race puts up an inside basket that Trace can crash. But you just haven't seen it as much in the last 2 weeks, and it'd be something, that would be nice to see that he can get back to. And some of that's predicated on his energy, I think.
Mike is off to the studio on Sunday. We call it Sunday Fun Day for Mike. But also make sure you follow him at the Sporting News, always with tons of great information there as college basketball is in full swing. Anything else that I missed, Mike?
No, my next bracket will be up this afternoon, and I know some Indiana fans are really starting to worry, but I will reveal the secret that they are still in. They are not as prominent on there as they once were, but they are still hanging on.
And what is the direct link where they can be found?
Yeah, you can find it on at CBB on Fox, at CBB on Fox, on all the various social medias, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, etc.
There you go, at CB on Fox.
CBB, 2 B's, college basketball.
College basketball. Mike,
right.
Thank you so much as always, man. We appreciate you. Looking forward.
Thanks, Jim. Thanks, Kev. See you soon.
Great Mike DeCourcy joining us here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio, brought to you by our good friends at Remax Realty. If you are in the market for a home in the Indianapolis area, you need Cheryl Sizemore and her 2 decades of experience. Reach out to Cheryl at IndyHomePros.com. We're back with more Indiana Sports Beat Radio right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington and Southern Stone Restaurant.
Start the new year out.
Hey, by the way, this is a little comment, not about the show, but about the commercials. I would say at the end of this month, cut a new Andy Moore, since you kind of themed it around the new year, and that only goes so far. Just wanted to share that. We'll talk about it later, but also I've got sound and video from Trey Galloway and Tamar Bates that you can use this segment if you'd like.
Yep.
Trey Galloway is just talking about how to rebound from the losing streak, and Tamar Bates is about his improved performance. It's actually the question you asked. So you'll have those.
Tamar is such. I'd also see if you can pull up Tamar talking about,
of course,
reading and it was asked by Tyler Talkman, and it was after me.
Right after you?
It might. Well, I don't know if it's right after me, but it was after me.
The books that he's reading.
Get it real quick.
Well, no, not the books that he's reading. The sheer fact that he does that. That he.
All right. Let me see real quick.
He's such a, especially for a freshman, he's such a well-spoken. He is obviously, he's in tune. His father is a big help there, but he's keeping his mental and physical health on the same level.
That's why I was like, he was the guy that I was the most surprised about being involved in that. Because he comes from a good family, and he now
on the broadcast, and I don't know that this is accurate, but Tim, who did the game with Bardo? Tim
It was Tim Brando.
Tim Brando said that they were not necessarily together. But I don't know that that's accurate, if that's just stuff that they gave them.
This is the reading question. Hold on.
My dad is
yes.
Everything stuff.
All right, hold on.
To take care of your mind, and why was that something you wanted to do?
All right. See if I can get this real quick.
Well,
how much time do I got?
That's actually the back end. That's a question regarding that question, but that's fine.
Is it good to you?
That's fine.
Okay. Give me 1 second.
What you said that it was just like recognizing that my.
All right, I'm gonna have to finish this after we come back from break.
All right,
because we're coming back.
Or 317-298-0961. Cheryl Sizemore from Remax Advanced Realty. Let Cheryl Sizemore get you in the home you want today. Cheryl at IndyHomePros.com. This segment is brought to you by Bubba's 33 in Clarksville. Pizza, burgers, beer.
Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington and Southern Stone Restaurant.
Welcome back. It is Tuesday here at Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Kevin Brockway from CNHI Papers with me. We had the opportunity yesterday to speak with Trey Galloway and Tamar Bates ahead of tonight's contest. Indiana hosting the Wisconsin Badgers, who are in the upper echelon of the Big Ten, upper echelon of most bracket analysts that you see. This is a great opportunity, Kevin, for Indiana to get a win that they desperately need for so many reasons. First of all, because they've lost, was it 3 straight? They need this win for a resume builder. They had this team beat to heavens and could have ended a streak that is of enormous proportions. And they just need it for their own psyche going forward here at the last stretch of the season.
Yeah, no question, Jim. I think that it's one of those games that, certainly losing at Northwestern, this could kind of make it up and put a nice taste in your mouth here heading into, what's going to be a challenging final stretch. And you wonder too, kind of, and you looked at last year too, and the way it all unraveled at the end of the year, the pressure element of it also. And do you rise to the, how do guys rise to the occasion in these situations? And do you even talk about the NCAA tournament? I remember, Billy Donovan used to never want to talk about the NCAA tournament this time of year. He just wanted the focus to be on the game. But, Mike Woodson even mentioned on the show last night, said, hey, there's nothing like playing in the NCAA tournament. And I have to be the guy that gets these guys over the hump. So they're talking about it here in mid-February. But you hope it doesn't get in their heads in terms of like them thinking about that and them thinking that like, oh, I've got to, we're running out of time and so forth. Just, kind of live in the moment and focus on what you have to do in that Wisconsin game in order to pull out a win and move on.
Yeah, I mentioned earlier that there are teams like Michigan who you got to watch out for. They're trying to get in ahead of that. Ohio State still has some games to make up, apparently. We'll see how that affects. We had the opportunity yesterday to speak with Trey Galloway. He talked about this losing streak, what it means to this team and how they need to get over it. Let's hear what Trey had to say.
I mean, we gotta lock in on our next game, which is Wisconsin. We know what we got to do. I mean, they're a great team, a great coach, coaching staff. We got to be able to lock in and prepare like we have prepared in the past games. But like you said, it's a 3-game losing streak. We know that. We always got to come together, keep fighting, and keep competing. And I think we've done a great job of preparing these couple of days, and I think we're ready for tomorrow.
So we'll see how that preparation is gone as we get toward the end of the season. Tamar Bates, someone else we had the opportunity to speak with. And not that Trey's not a great, well-spoken kid as well. Most of them are. But you talk to Trey, he just goes a little deeper. And like yesterday, he talked about things, keeping his mental health along with his physical health. And not that there's an issue there, but just because he's being smart enough in conversations with his dad, all the stress, the pressure that comes with this. And trust me, you think there's not stress and pressure on these kids, you're wrong. But he is doing a remarkable job, and here's part of how he deals with that.
I mean, that was something I found, really important, just because, everything starts up top. So it's like, that's something that my dad he's big on, and even last year, like in high school, like the guys that I was around, like the coaching staff, that was something they stressed that was really important. So just, I would say it was just like recognizing that my physical health is just as important as my mental health. So that was all it was, and I wanted to take a more serious approach and actually, put action towards it.
That's a freshman, folks, but that's a mature freshman. that was not me as a freshman. I can guarantee you. But you love to see that because first of all, he's thinking, he's aware, and he's taking action. You gotta love that. I do. I love to see someone like that doing that, listening to his father, getting great advice, but heeding that advice. And part of how, John, did you find that second clip?
No, you said you were fine with that one. I didn't know you wanted both of them. Sorry. I do have the one that of your question, but it's not related to the mental health stuff.
Okay, well, go ahead and play that one.
I mean, I wouldn't say there was too much of a difference. I mean, my focus was a little bit more fine-tuned going into the game. But, I mean, I feel like that was, pretty good for, myself personally, for my confidence, and then just, good for the whole team in terms of their confidence in me as well. So, I mean, I would have liked to, come out with the win. That was really what the main focus was. Like, it was like both teams had lost 2 in a row. So, I mean, I didn't want to, let us drop 3, but we got another opportunity tomorrow.
I asked at that point, I had asked Tamar, he got into the game. He hit those back-to-back threes. The one he missed looked good. His form looked good. He just looked really smooth and comfortable, Kevin, out there. Maybe as comfortable as I've seen him in a while. I don't know if it's all season or not, but it's been long enough that I don't remember him looking that comfortable. And, man, knocked those 2 shots down, even that third one that didn't go down. It looked good. But he looked comfortable, and I asked him what could that do for him going forward, and that's what his answer was there. But man, he seems to be growing into his skin right now, and he could be a very important part of this team here at this end of the season.
Yeah, that's like Mike said earlier, his ability to score at different levels too, I think would be helpful to this team. That and let's face it, we've seen a lot of offensive droughts, particularly recently in these last 3 games, as a guy that can go in and make something happen and help lift the second unit, especially now that, you have Trey Galloway in the first unit. So he's a guy that can come off the bench. You hope he builds off this and gives you a little consistent production because you're going to need it, particularly as this team kind of keeps going here these last 6 games. You gotta get find ways to get a little more offense, because you can play hard defense all you want, but ultimately the game is about putting the ball in the basket. And I think that guys like Tamar Bates are certainly have shown the ability, capable of that. He went through the prolonged slump, and you hope he's out of it. But we'll see tonight what kind of attention he gets to against the Badgers coming off that big game.
Absolutely. Kevin asks thoughts on the future core of Bates, Galloway, Leal, maybe Lander. I think that when you think of Bates, I like that. Galloway, you've got to like that. You have to have hope for Anthony Leal. The dude can shoot. I mean, I see him all the time, knocking him down. Lander, I'll be honest with you, while I have great affection for him, I don't know. I just don't know, especially when – and that's up to me. I don't know what his growth will be over the summer, because it's going to have to be there. But when I know who's coming in, I know that Jalen Hood-Schifino is coming in, and I know what his level of play is. I've seen it. You've got Ja'Kai Newton coming in. We know what level his play is coming in. We've seen it. You've got CJ Gunn coming in. We know what his level of play is. I've seen it. So I think that the future is bright for Indiana. And with at least probably 3/4 of those guys. Kevin, your thoughts?
I can't get the Northwestern game out of my head with Leal. I mean, I thought that was his opportunity, and he didn't just show me much, And I mean, it's just like, to me, that was like his chance to show in a Big Ten game what he could do. And if he would have raised his level, maybe they would have pulled that game out. So I'm not 100% sold, and I know that he has limitations defensively. Maybe he does need a little more time, a little more development. Christian Lander, obviously, we have seen, his, the off the court issue, obviously, puts him further in the doghouse. And we know that for some reason it hasn't jived with this new coaching staff with him and this new system with him. So he could be a transfer candidate in the offseason, I think. But Trey Galloway and Tamar Bates are two guys I think that are keepers.
Oh, absolutely. And looking forward to that coming up. So looking forward to seeing a lot of those guys play. But there's no question the portal is going to play a role in Indiana's roster next year. But it depends. We don't know where they're going to be in the middle. We expect Trace Thompson will be here, but we don't know that. Trace Jackson Davis is a gigantic question mark. Everyone assumes that he's going to be gone, but I don't know where he's would go at this point, to be honest with you. I don't know that he gets drafted, but that's up to the NBA folks. They may see someone, there may be a team that has a role specific for him. I don't know that. They very well may be. We'll have to wait and see. But
there's pressure on players with the ability and the talent, Trey Jackson Davis. There's always that pressure of, I'm going to be 21, I'm going to be 22, I'm getting older in the NBA vernacular. When you see many young kids come in, do I just go now and bide my time in the G League and try to make it that way? I think that's kind of a thought process that goes into your mind too, if you're a player like Trace Jackson Davis, or where I don't have to worry about school, where I can really work on my game and really hone my game every day, versus do you come back for your senior year? But I think Trace is a guy, he seems like a guy that likes college. He seems like he enjoys, that atmosphere of it. And I think he enjoys being a Hoosier. So, why not? Maybe a chance to, build up in the record books too and build a legacy. We'll see how this year plays out. I think if they don't make the NCAA tournament too, I think that might factor into Trace's mind too, in terms of, unfinished business, not wanting to go out as a Hoosier that, never gets to play in the NCAA tournament, versus if they make it. I think that could play a factor as well.
Let's take a break. Chronic Hoosier coming up next on Indiana Sports Beat Radio, brought to you by Bubba's 33 in Clarksville. When you're down south, right off of I-65, stop in. Pizza, burgers, beer. Back with more Indiana Sports Beat Radio right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington and Southern Stone Restaurant.
Whether it's a celebration. Hello, sir.
What's happening today, gentlemen?
It's another day in paradise, as someone I know would say.
Yes, it is.
How was your weekend?
It was all right. It was all right. We laid pretty low, got to spend, did our Valentine's on Saturday night. So it was good. Good time.
Kevin, when did you do your Valentine's?
I was in East Lansing, trying to battle the snow on the way back.
Did the snow on the way home?
Oh, it was bad. Yeah, it was rough. Yeah, it was rough on the way back, but we made it. That was Sunday, right? And then, I sent flowers to a friend of mine in Florida. That was about it.
George? Did you send flowers to George?
Wow. No.
But you did get to spend Valentine's Day with George.
Well, no. I mean, Valentine's Day was yesterday, actually. So.
Oh, that's true. Well, it was what you said. You did it celebrated on Saturday.
What did you do for the Super Bowl? Did you do any parties or anything?
Chilled out, baby. Nope.
Yeah.
Same thing I did a weekend. I just chilled out.
Yeah.
Yep, we're good.
My God. Oh, what's new with you, Chronic?
Not a thing. Just had to dip over to my general physician today. Got a clean bill of health and heard those 5 dreaded words. We need to schedule you a colonoscopy.
Oh, man. It's funny. I saw a tweet. Someone put up a post of the ad for the Super Bowl and said, if you're stoked about this, it's time for your colonoscopy.
For the halftime show.
For the halftime show.
Well, there's more truth in that than a lot of us care to admit.
Yeah, but you ain't lying, but there's a lot of people that liked it seemed like.
I'll tell you what, that was kind of cool. I mean, I know everybody tried to pigeonhole that as, targeted for Gen Z or Gen X rather, but my Gen Z kids thought it was cooler than hell.
Yeah, I dug it. I think people just close off. They crack me up. They just want to close everything off to their little deal and not be open to other things enough.
It was a lot like the game itself. If you weren't a supporter of either one of those teams, it's hard not to like the whole product that they put on the field from start to finish. Honestly, it was a competitive game. It was a great halftime show. I'm one of those that, my wife and daughter love the commercials. That's usually when I'm running to get a refill or go to the bathroom. I could give two craps about what the ads are, but it had something for everybody.
River Road and the Lloyd Expressway. This segment is brought to you by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington and Southern Stone Restaurant.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Tuesday. Chronic Hoosier joining us, brought to you by our great friends at Andy Moore Honda, Bloomington. Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer. #1 for a reason. They've got the best deals. Go there and check it out, andymorehonda.com. You can get more to your door. Speaking of more to your door, we've got it with Chronic Hoosier. He joins Kevin Brockway and myself. How are you, sir?
I am doing well. I'm not gonna lie, man. I am pretty amped up for tonight. This is such a big game, and I'm excited to get to the hall and check it out. We'll see if I feel the same way at midnight.
Yeah. Joe Hillman did the post-game show a couple games back and talked about, or it was the last game actually, but talked about how big of a game this was going to be, and he hadn't done that before. But he was kind of specific about the fans need to show up for this game. There needs to be the energy there. You've got to have that Purdue-esque energy because Indiana needs this game. The Indiana team needs to have that energy. They have to play defense at that same high level for 40 minutes, not 20 minutes, but they've got to hit shots and free throws. Now, that usually happens a little more frequently when you're at home. So let's see that happens. But they have got to do the basic things, man. You just got to hit shots, hit free throws, and play better basketball.
No doubt. I mean, Kyle Tabor had said something pretty similar the other day. I can't remember which loss it was after, but basically talking about the fact that, as daunting as the schedule is, the flip side is there are a ton of opportunities for Indiana to improve themselves as far as their tournament selection, as far as their seeding and everything else. And, as a player, how could you not love to see all these ranked opponents on the roster, national broadcasts, not on the roster, on the schedule, excuse me, and just the opportunity available to show the world what type of a team you are. And I know this team thinks a whole lot better of themselves than what the record may reflect at this point. And I think a lot of fans probably did as well, not that very long ago. Purdue was less than a month ago. And I think most Indiana fans were riding pretty high after that. And I don't think this team is that far removed with the absence of Rob Finney from a team that's capable of pulling out that kind of an outcome. And if they're ever going to reconnect with that, it's probably going to have to happen at Assembly Hall. It's probably going to take a ranked team. And it's on the table for them tonight if they want to take it.
Kevin? Yeah, last ranked team at home too, because the final two will be on the road. That'll be Ohio State and Purdue. So you really got to have this one in terms of this is really your best opportunity for another, quad one win, and that would put you at 3 and 5, and then you'd have, 2 more at Purdue and at Ohio State. So I think that this is, this is really important in terms of having to come out with the right mindset. Defensively, got to contain Johnny Davis, make other guys beat you. As I said earlier, Brad Davison has been struggling a little bit. So you hope that he doesn't get going and that continues. And Tyler Wall, containing him inside and get Trace established too. I think get him, back to feeling good about himself. And some of that's on him too, in terms of his post boost. And like I said, his energy. I mean, I just really think that, Trace is a guy that especially because he's limited, obviously, in terms of his outside shooting and stuff. When he gets those rebounds and those putbacks and uses his athleticism at the rim in that way on the offensive boards, I think that really gets him going and gets his confidence going.
And Indiana is going to need that, not just for this game, but continuing to going forward. And can they maintain that going forward? Because as this season gets shorter, the opportunities, while they have them in front of them, they are also getting shorter. The challenges also grow tall as well. Going to Purdue at the end of the season, I mean, that's not a game that right now I think anyone expects Indiana to win. But there are games that they do are expected to have to win, and this is one of them. They just have to rise up. If you want to make the tournament, there are things you have to do. It's pure and simple. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to knock off the number one team in the country, but there are games that you have to win, and this is just falls into that category for me.
And the big thing right now is this is a team that, and Woodson kind of addressed it a little bit last night when he was speaking about the team's leadership, or the lack thereof at times, acknowledging this is a team that has not been there. This is a team that has not found success at the close of a season for anybody that's on this roster. And it's really difficult to do it, to be it, when you've never seen it, when you've never made it happen. And it's not that it's impossible. It's just there's nobody on the floor to show them the way. And it's a struggle he's clearly battling with right now, trying to get them in a position where they can make that happen, where they can actualize that, having not yet done it before. And sports psychology is an extraordinarily complex science. But at the end of the day, it's really kind of a simple equation. You've got to get a group of guys to buy into the same goal and the same game plan and go out and execute it better than the guys trying to stop you from doing that. And, one of the nice things about tonight's matchup, as brutal as the Wisconsin loss was in Madison, it's easy to lose sight of the fact that this team played some really, really beautiful basketball for 20 plus minutes of that game, and put themselves in a position to win, only to give it away by surrendering a 20-3 run to close the game out. That team that throttled them to start is still playing basketball together right now in Bloomington, and if they can find a way to reconnect with that, just a tremendous opportunity to get some confidence back, to wash away the bad taste of 3 consecutive losses, and maybe simmer down on some of that tournament bubble talk here that's clearly taken over the IU universe at this point.
And they would not have really been that far out of the Michigan State game. Michigan State, let's don't forget, while it's shooting a lot of free throws, more importantly, they hit a lot of free throws. It was just crazy to watch them at one point. I think they were 23 of 25 or something out. Unbelievable. I mean, that's out of the ordinary, which made that look worse than it was. I think Indiana, if they had just done a couple of things and Michigan State had not have been on super cloud 9 hitting free throws that day, that game would have been back and forth. But unfortunately, it was also a very physical game, and that did not work out in Indiana's favor either. They're going to have to be able to control themselves and stay out of foul trouble, because that's something we've seen happen a lot, especially with the guards. Xavier Johnson, we've seen it throughout the year, not just him, but if Lander was in there, I've seen him play a few minutes and almost foul out. The guards have got to play better defense without fouling.
No, and I think that's everything. As much as we like to focus on Trace Jackson Davis's contributions or shortcomings, the thing that stands out to me is in the last 3 games, Indiana spent over half the time on the floor without a true point guard on the floor. And as critical as Trace is to this team's offensive efficiency, I would take it even further and say you've got to have a guard. You've got to have somebody that can not only create, but defensively, as bad as Indiana looked in the pick and roll defense, so much of that starts at the point of attack. And Xavier has got to find a way to keep the energy, the intensity dialed up, but the focus, the sharpness of that effort has to be commensurate with the effort, because otherwise you find him in early foul trouble, effectively neutralizing whatever contributions he may have available when he's not on the floor with you. And with Rob Finney's continued absence right now, Indiana just doesn't have a whole lot of other answers. So as much as I'd love to see Trace reestablish himself tonight, I'm looking at X, and I'm looking at the non-post players on this team. They're going to have to be sharp, and they're going to have to show up, and they're going to have to do it on both ends of the floor if Indiana's going to have a chance to win this one.
I mean, Kevin, is it fair to say this team goes almost as Xavier goes with his play on the floor, being the point guard and staying out of foul trouble?
Certainly, no. He had that nice stretch when they won 4 or 5. He was very good. And, he hasn't been good of late. And you don't know if the suspension kind of took something out of him in terms of, him coming back off it. And I thought early in that mission.
There was also a family. He had a family loss in this period too. Just don't forget about that.
Yeah. And, his certainly, when you talk about his ability too. But, I think also, you talk about and knock down some shots too. I think that's something that, try to break out of this slump if you can in terms of perimeter shooting, because that has really hurt them as well in terms of somebody's got to step up and make some shots, whether it's Miller Kopp, whether it's Parker Stewart, whether it's Galloway, Xavier Johnson, to maybe take some pressure off those big guys inside too, and take some pressure even off Xavier a little bit, is to get some production from the perimeter and hit a few 3-pointers.
There's a lot of talk. Trace Jackson Davis has not been nearly as effective in the last 3 games around the rim. His percentages had dropped way off. But how much of that is a product of the perimeter guys not hitting shots and the defense being able to sag on him? And how much of that is Trace Jackson Davis not doing enough to step up?
Yes to all the above. I mean, quite honestly.
Yes,
that's. I don't mean to cop out with that, but that's.
Did we lose him?
Possibly. Just when he was agreeing with us. He'll be back. But yeah, he'll pop back in as soon as if you jump in, Chronic, just start talking. But that's, to me, Trace Jackson Davis has to play consistently, period. I don't care what's going on. I don't care if they're hitting shots. He's got to maintain his aggressive nature. Chronic, you back? He's got to. All right, there you go. Fire away. You were in agreement.
No, and I think it's everything. I think this team can revert to being too one-dimensional. If the shots aren't falling outside, if the driving lanes aren't available, it becomes the Trace show. And it's really easy when everybody knows what you're trying to do, and that's just get a post-entry pass and let your big guy eat. This league is too well scouted. There's too much talent on the floor to be that easy to defend. And I do think it starts with the guards, though. I think part of it is pulling the trigger on those post entries as soon as it's available, rather than waiting for the perfect window. I think part of it is recognizing there's going to be other guys that have shots available to them. The ball's got to find them, and they've got to have the confidence to get it up. It's playing with inside the offense. And as much as Trace may be your number one option on offense, that doesn't mean at the expense of all the other options that may be available that may have better looks. And that really falls on everybody. Quite frankly, as much as we want to lay it on the guards, I'm looking at the wings just as well. We have got to get production from the Miller Kopps, from the Parker Stewarts, from the Trey Galloways, in order to keep defenses honest, in order to give them the best chance to win. Just because everybody else is rolling out multiple scoring options, you've got to be on par with that if you want to have a chance to compete. Because, quite frankly, as we've seen, Trace isn't necessarily up for, the 25 points and 15 boards every night against every team. That's not who he is. That's not how he's built. I think most people recognize he often is playing at a significant disadvantage by having to play the 5 with some of the talent in this league. And not surprisingly, sometimes he doesn't always win out in those matchups. We saw it against Michigan. We saw it against Illinois. We continue to see it with some of these. It's a whole lot easier if some other guys step up and shoulder some of that load for him. So we'll see if they can figure that out. We've seen it before, and the bench along those lines as well. Indiana, as much as we point to the guards and Trace, this team seems to rise and fall with its bench contributions as well. And, the one thing I keep thinking about that's got me excited going into this game is I know there's a lot of passion on that roster, on that bench. And I know the film study probably hasn't been that pleasant for a lot of them. So hopefully this is a chance for them to get right with themselves, get right with their teammates, and, get right with this fan base. It's certainly taken a turn here, as it's wont to do during these losing stretches. We've seen it far too often, especially in February. It's a great opportunity tonight to put some of that to bed and put some positive thoughts in everybody's heads.
Yeah, Kevin, you pointed out the lack of scoring. That's why I would prefer to see Tamar Bates rather than Trey Galloway in the starting lineup, because I think he can score. He can score from different ways. He can shoot the ball. He can drive. He can do other things. Bring Trout. I like to see Trey still come off the bench, but they have to have more scoring. Period. You've got to score the basketball. They're just playing too many. You think about Wisconsin, you think about those 50-point games, man. And that's not, I don't think Indiana is built for that. So they've got to get more scoring, and they've got to get more scoring starting tonight.
Yeah, and I think too, that's an interesting proposition. And either or, I think that you probably either keep Galloway in the starting lineup or you move Tamar Bates and move Trey to the second unit, because you do need that score in the second unit, I think, as well. That bench scoring that Chronic alluded to earlier, in terms of this team being at their best when they're at the bench. You look at the Michigan State game, outscored 44-20 on the bench, mainly because Tyson Walker had a big game, Malik Hall had a big game. Those two combined for 33, and Indiana just other than Tamar Bates didn't really have much coming off the bench. Geronimo is a guy. Again, the turnovers are an issue. 3 turnovers in that Michigan State game. He's another one that you'd like to see maybe step up and have a big game and do a little more, but he's just got to be more careful with the basketball. I think that's been the huge issue for him in Big Ten play.
Absolutely. Chronic, tonight it is. It sounds like you're going to be out at Simon Scott Assembly Hall for the late game.
I think we lost him.
Oh. Yep, we did. I looked up and he's gone. So thanks a lot to Chronic. We appreciate him coming along today. We've got to take a quick break anyway. Brought to you by Andy Moore Honda Bloomington, Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer. You want a great deal? You know where to go. Bloomington. You get more to your door. AndyMooreHonda.com. Back with more Indiana Sports Beat Radio right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington and Southern Stone Restaurants.
Whether it's a celebration or... Kevin, give me your address. I'm going to buy a microphone and have it shipped to you. You sound like you're talking through your backside.
Okay, 3373.
Don't read it off.
Don't give it to me now.
Yeah, text it to him. Text it to him. I've made that mistake before, or at least almost made the mistake.
All right.
All right. I'm sending you something, John. This is a spot. It's so funny. Okay. I get one from Dan and I get one from Alan.
They different ones?
Yeah, I think he just gets his own or something. What do you have up, Kevin?
What do I have up right now?
Yep.
Just the advanced story for the Wisconsin game. And Big Ten column will be tomorrow, but I haven't decided what I'm going to write about yet.
Probably has something to do with what happens tonight.
Yeah. Oh, and I got something coming out this week on CJ Gunn. I went and saw him play.
CJ Gunn.
Yeah. And I talked to Omar Cooper, too. He's a nice kid.
Yep.
Aren't they going to be roommates or something?
I don't know that they have that option.
Yeah.
I remember one of them talking about it on your show. That's why I said that. Maybe I'm wrong, though.
What am I looking to pull up? Damn it.
Maybe Omar will room.
Oh, no, it's I think it's Omar and Donovan McCulley.
Yeah, McCulley, because
That's
they're
probably
football
what it
players.
was.
Omar plays basketball like a football player. He's a 5'5" guy. 5 points, 5 rebounds, 5 fouls. Yeah.
Monday through Friday. If we're not on a station where you live, we should be. Ask for Indiana Sports Beat Radio. This segment is brought to you by Aurora Specialty Sleep Clinic. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington and Southern Stone Restaurant.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Tuesday. Make sure you go to thehoosier.com, complete information and live threads for tonight's game in Wisconsin. Also, Kevin, you have your preview story out.
Yeah, I've got my preview story out today from Wisconsin. I'll have something later in the week on CJ Gunn. I had a chance to see him. Lawrence North beat Ben Davis on Friday night because I was kind of on the way up to East Lansing, so I figured I'd go up there and take in a game. And CJ was terrific. I mean, 13 of 17 from the floor. You could see he's really improved his touch, his mid-range game. Trying to extend that range out to the three-point line. He's 1 of 4 from 3. Did hit a big 3 in the fourth quarter. Defense, athleticism. They were playing him at the front of the press. He was really good in the front of the zone press. 3 blocks. 2 steals. Just really an all-around.
He's one of the most improved players over last season. Last summer, he wasn't scoring a lot. On the AAU circuit, he was scoring about 10 points a game. And I think that the IU staff said, hey, man, you need to be more of a scorer. You got to start scoring more. And, man, he took that to heart. And he has had some big-time games since he came back this season after injury. The first game back, he scored 18 points in the fourth quarter of that game. What do you end up in that game that you saw him play?
Yeah, this game he had 13 in the fourth quarter. He had 31 overall. And, what impressed me was just a lot more confident shooting the basketball. And he had 4 dunks, too. I mean, he was very good in transition. The biggest guy on the floor, I thought he could have rebounded a little better. His instincts rebounding the ball aren't great. But for a wing, they talk a lot about 3-and-D guys. And if he can get that 3-point shot, I could see him as that kind of 3-and-D wing where you can, stick him out there, guard a guy, and hit 3-pointers. And there's a lot of value in that, for him, not just at the college level, but even at the next level beyond that, if he continues to improve his game. There's a lot of value in those wing players that can go out and defend really good shooters and then, hit your own 3-point shots.
Tim asked, can CJ Gunn win Mr. Basketball? Of course he can. But it's going to be a little difficult for him because he does not play for Carmel, which you got Sam Mormay, who is getting a lot of attention because they're having a better season. But that's going to be an interesting run. I can't wait to talk to Cal Nedrip about that. I mean, we're not that far off from there. So I wonder to get his thought. We'll get his thoughts tomorrow on that. But CJ Gunn, I don't know personally. He's had as good a season as anybody individually.
Yeah. And, he was part of that Lawrence North team that came up just short against Carmel last year, right, in the state finals. And
yep,
this year you got to hope that they can maybe they can get hot late. I know he said it's been kind of a trying season for them, kind of an up and down year for Lawrence North, and felt really good about that win against Ben Davis the other night.
Absolutely. They just don't seem to have the strength in the team. They've lost a couple of tough games this year, but things can turn around once the tournament starts. But there's a few more teams, it seems like, in the state this year in that 4A that I don't know that there's definitely not a clear and present number one team. I mean, it is really kind of rotated, but I think maybe up to 5 teams that could win the state championship this year, maybe more.
Yeah, I mean it's definitely possible, and I think Lawrence North is hoping that they'll be in the mix when it's all said and done. I also saw Omar Cooper is also on that team, and he definitely plays basketball like a football player. He's a 5 guy, 5 points, 5 rebounds, 5 fouls. But I talked to him after the game a little bit about getting ready for football season, and I think he's pretty excited about Tom Allen, and basically said that his dad talked a little bit to Walt Bell about the offense and so forth. That's why he waited to sign for a day, but he eventually came on board. And I think he and a lot of those other guys have that opportunity in front of them with some of the wide receivers down with Miles Marshall transferring. There's a chance there where, hey, if you can really stand out and have a good fall camp, maybe you'll get some reps as a true freshman, get some snaps out there.
Notre Dame is really rebuilding Notre Dame football. Remember Al Golden?
Yes.
He's now the defensive coordinator for the Fighting Irish after spending the last 2 seasons as the Bengals linebacker coach. I mean, they're really trying to build up a coaching staff there. Luke Fickell agrees to an extension as the Bearcats are planning to go into the Big 12 in a few years. He led the Bearcats into college football playoffs this season. He's gone 48-15 over 5 years. So looks like they've got him locked down for now, at least, but they're not scheduled to enter the Big 12 until 2025?
Yeah, it's going to be a little while, but good for them. And then hey, Indiana goes to Cincinnati, goes to Nippert Stadium in September.
It's going to be a tough game.
Another tough one for the Hoosiers. Yeah.
Indiana has a toughest schedule next year. You open up, I don't care that you open up at home. You open up against an Illinois team who is going to be hungry. Brett Balima's team, they're going to be hungry. That's going to be a tough-ass game to start the season. And
yeah. And it would have been Northwestern, but now Northwestern is playing in Ireland, I guess, the week before. They're playing.
Why couldn't they send Indiana to Ireland?
That would have been fun.
Well, yes. James Patrick Coyle would have enjoyed that, I assure you. I've never been to the motherland.
Yeah. Well, St. Patrick's Day's coming up right next month.
Yeah, but it won't be the same as it would have been in, Kevin's favorite. Tell your favorite stupid joke.
Why is Ireland the fastest growing country in the world? Because its capital is always Dublin.
Silence. Crickets.
Yes.
If I've heard him tell that joke once, I've heard him tell it 10 times, but he tells it, at least now when he tells it, I already know the answer.
Yeah.
But yeah. So a lot of things coming up on the sports agenda. Other games tonight. There's only 2 other Big Ten games tonight.
Yeah.
See, Michigan State is at Penn State at 6:30 on BTN. Minnesota is at number 18, Ohio State at 8:30 on BTN. And then number 15, Wisconsin, is at Indiana at 9 o'clock on ESPN2. So 3 of the Big Ten's ranked teams are playing tonight. Any upsets?
Is this game on ESPN or ESPN2?
This game is listed as being on ESPN2 at the moment, from what I'm looking at.
Hold on.
But that's on ESPN's page. So,
because they had it on, I would have sworn that they had it on ESPN. They
may have, but as of
now it's
the date
ESPN.
See, there you go. He doubted me.
No, because it was on the notes all week as ESPN, and I had it in my article today as ESPN, and now I'm mad that it got changed to ESPN2 at the last minute.
A lot of complaints about the offense, the shots, saying, "Oh, well, the reason they can't hit shots is because there's too much standing around." One thing I think Woody, he's used to guys that can hit shots in the NBA. You don't have guys that shoot this poorly. You don't have this many guys that can shoot this poorly. So the offense doesn't need to be as intricate. I'm wondering if he's gathering the fact that they need to integrate more offense to produce more shots than just letting guys take shots, because Miller Kopp and Parker Stewart have shown that they just aren't going to knock down shots. I don't care if they're moving or not. Miller Kopp had plenty of open looks at Northwestern where he is as familiar as can be and just didn't hit them. They've had enough open looks, and I don't care if they're moving or not. Look, you just have to knock down shots. If you're a shooter shoots, period. A shooter hits. And if you can't hit a shot where you've got an open look, I don't care if you need to be moving or not. I'm not disagreeing with needing to see some different type of offense, but at the same time, you've got to knock down shots when you have wide open shots, and they don't do that.
I think you're still seeing some screen and roll here and there. You're seeing some motion concept. Maybe you're not seeing it as frequently, but you are seeing some of that try to develop. And I think it works well with Xavier, probably more than any of the other point guards, where he's the most comfortable in doing it. But it's like I said, he explained. I think Mike explained it as kind of right now their bread and butter is still to kind of dump down to, race and trace and play inside out. And that's the way they're going to play. And that's where they've been the most effective. And I think coaches know their teams the best. Let's put it that way in that regard.
Exactly. And maybe it's a lack of confidence in the shooting. I don't know, but Indiana's going to have to hit shots to get to the NCAA tournament. End of story. If you want to advance, win a game in the Big Ten tournament, which I think could become a necessity for reaching the NCAA tournament, you're going to have to hit shots. I'm not saying you have to hit 15 3-point shots, but you can't go 4 for 30 or you can't 4 for 25. Yeah. You can't do that. You've got to hit shots at the damn free throw line. You can't shoot 60% at the free throw line.
11 points left out there at the free throw line. I think too, I do remember there was this one stretch during the Michigan State game where we made a little bit of a run, but they could have made a bigger run where they were settling for bad shots and they were settling for a lot of open mid-range shots. And that's what the defense wants to give you. The defense is going to, I remember Billy Donovan used to say, no threes, no layups. That's kind of the thing. And I thought that they went through a stretch in that Michigan State game where they were kind of settling for bad shots instead of, taking the ball to the rim, being more aggressive. And, and Mike Woodson alludes to the fact in the second half when they were in the bonus, for as bad as they were shooting at the free throw line, they went to a stretch in the second half where they took a few bad shots instead of trying to get inside to race and trace, where maybe they could get fouled in that situation. And then, your fingers crossed, you're hoping they make the free throws, obviously, in that situation as well. So
yeah, there was this point where I think that Joe Hillman, when he was on the postgame show the other night, spoke specifically of Trey Galloway taking a 3-point shot with 18 seconds left on the clock. He said, first of all, why he's not your 3-point shooter? Why is he taking 3-point shots? I don't know. But I really don't know why he's doing it with 18 seconds left on the clock. These guys, they have to learn the roles. They have to learn who needs to do what. And I know that you cannot be completely predictable, but if you're not successful in your own, in what you are predictable at, then you're not going to be successful at being unpredictable. So they have to become better at just doing the basic things that they need to do. And that starts with hitting damn shots.
Yeah, I think that's the main thing. And I think also, there is a value of taking good shots also, I think, within the offense, smart shots. And Sometimes, and even Trace in his struggles of late, I think, instead of falling away some of those one-handed hook shots, why don't you just wait for the play to develop and do those dump downs to Race like you were doing early in the season where Race has the better shot. I think that, I think some of that is missing too, that, kind of the buddy ball, the two-man game that they had in interior.
Where has that gone? Where has that gone?
Yeah, you're missing some of that too, where Trace has taken some bad shots, and maybe you hope that reappears tonight as well, because, like I said, they're going to need it. Certainly down the stretch here.
I guess the worst thing is, have we seen this team? Is there any improvement from 2 months ago to right now? Where would you say this team is better?
Yeah, I think that's the thing. I thought for a while with Xavier, they were a little better at the point guard position, but now he's kind of fallen off a little bit. But there's still 6 games left to grow and to improve. And, Kenya Hunter was talking about that. That's what he's hoping for, to see that, 24 games in, that you're hoping that these last 5 or 6, it all kind of comes together.
Yeah. Let's see. Tonight, it starts tonight at the Simon Scott Assembly Hall as the Wisconsin Badgers pay a visit. That game, if you're not going to be able to attend, 9 p.m. on ESPN2. I will be there. Kevin will be there. And, of course, the post-game show afterwards, Charlie Miller will be joining us. So make sure you tune in for that. Looking forward to that. Kevin, can't thank you enough as always. Big thanks to Mike DeCourcy as well. Make sure you follow him on Sunday on his bracket analysis and Chronic as well. Most importantly, thanks to you guys and John, the producer. Without you guys, no reason for us to be here. Until tonight at Simon Scott Assembly Hall, I'm Jim Coyle. I will see you on the radio.